I've heard if you go through a Waygate, mad, if you come out at all. It can be done, Huron. I've done it, and Loyal and Matt and Perrin. Rand never took his eyes from the tangles of leaves on the stone. There was one unlike any other carved there, he knew. The trefoil leaf of fabled Avendesora, the tree of life. He put his hand on it. I'll bet you can smell the trail along the ways. We can follow anywhere they can run. It would not hurt to prove to himself that he could make himself step through a Waygate. I'll prove it to you. He heard Huron groan. The leaf was worked in the stone just as the others were, but it came away in his hand. Loyal groaned too. In an instant, the illusion of living plants seemed suddenly real. Stone leaves appeared to stir with the breeze. Flowers appeared to have color even in the dark. Down the center of the mass, a line appeared, and the two halves of the slab swung slowly toward Rand. He stepped back to let them open. He did not find himself looking at the other side of the walled square, but neither did he see the dull silver reflection he remembered. The space between the opening gates was a black so dark it seemed to make the night around it lighter. The pitch blackness oozed out between the still-moving gates. Rand leaped back with a shout, dropping the Avendesora leaf in his haste, and Loyal cried out, "Marchin' Shin, the Black Wind!" The sound of wind filled their ears. The grass stirred in ripples toward the walls, and dirt swirled up, sucked into the air. And in the wind, 1,000 insane voices seemed to cry. 10,000, overlapping, drowning each other. Rand could make out some of them, though he tried not to. Blood so sweet to drink the blood that drips, drops so red. Pretty eyes, fine eyes, I have no eyes. Pluck the eyes from out of your head. Grind your bones, split your bones inside your flesh. Suck your marrow while you scream. Scream, singing screams, sing your screams. And worst of all, a whispering thread through all the rest. Ulthor, Ulthor, Ulthor. Rand found the void around him and embraced it, never minding the tantalizing, sickening glow of saidin just out of his sight. Greatest of all the dangers along the ways was the black wind that took the souls of those it killed and drove mad those it let live. But Machin Shin was a part of the ways. It could not leave them. Only it was flowing into the night when the black wind called his name. The Waygate was not yet fully open. If they could only put the Avendesora leaf back. He saw Loyal scrambling on his hands and knees, fumbling and searching the grass in the darkness. saidin filled him. He felt as if his bones were vibrating, felt the red-hot, ice-cold flow of the one power, felt truly alive as he never was without it, felt the oil-slick taint. No! And silently he screamed back at himself from beyond the emptiness. It's coming for you. It'll kill all of us. He hurled it all at the black bulge, standing out a full span from the Waygate now. He did not know what it was that he hurled or how, but in the heart of that darkness bloomed a coruscating fountain of light. The black wind shrieked, 10,000 wordless howls of agony. Slowly, giving way inch by reluctant inch, the bulge lessened. Slowly the oozing reversed, back into the still open Waygate. The power raced through Rand in a torrent. He could feel the link between himself and saidin, like a river in flood. Between himself and the pure fire blazing in the heart of the black wind, a raging cataract. The heat inside him went to white heat and beyond, to a shimmer that would have melted stone and vaporized steel and made the air burst into flame. The cold grew till the breath in his lungs should have frozen solid and hard as metal. He could feel it overwhelming him, feel life eroding like a soft clay riverbank, feel what was him wearing away. Can't stop. If it gets out, have to kill it. I cannot stop. Desperately, he clung to fragments of himself. The one power roared through him. He rode it like a chip of wood in rapids. The void began to melt and flow. The emptiness steamed with freezing cold. The motion of the Waygate halted and reversed. Rand stared, sure in the dim thoughts floating outside the void that he was only seeing what he wanted to see. The gates drifted closer together, pushing back much in shin, as if the black wind had solid substance. The inferno still roared in its breast. With a vague, distant wondering, Rand saw Loyal, still on hands and knees, backing away from the closing gates. The gap narrowed, vanished. The leaves and vines merged into a solid wall and were stone. The link between him and the fire snapped. The flow of power through him ceased. A moment more, and it would have swept him away completely. Shaking, he dropped to his knees. It was still there inside. saidin. No longer flowing, but there in a pool. It was a pool of the one power. He trembled with it. He could smell the grass, the dirt beneath, the stone of the walls. Even in the darkness, he could see each blade of grass separate and whole, all of them at once. He could feel each minute stirring of the air on his face. His tongue curdled with the taste of the taint. His stomach knotted and spasmed. Frantically, he clawed his way out of the void.
Just heat up some water right now to
he fought free. And then all that was left was the fading
make a nice
foulness on his
ginger
tongue,
tea.
the cramping in his stomach, and the memory. So alive. You saved us, Builder. Yurin had his back pressed against the wall, and his voice was hoarse. That thing. That was the Black Wind. It was worse than... Was it going to hurl that fire at us? Lord Rand, did it harm you? Did it touch you? He came running as Rand got to his feet, helping him the last bit. Loyal was getting up too, dusting his hands and his knees. We'll never follow Thane through that. Rand touched Loyal's arm. Thank you. You did save us. You saved me, at least. It was killing me. Killing me, and it felt wonderful. He swallowed. A faint trace of the taste still coated his mouth. I want something to drink. I only found the leaf and put it back, Loyal said, shrugging. It seemed that if we could not get the waygate closed, it would kill us. I am afraid I'm not a very good hero, Rand. I was so afraid I could hardly think. We were both afraid, Rand said. We may be a poor pair of heroes, but we are what there is. It's a good thing Ingtar is with us. Lord Rand, Yurin said diffidently. Could we... leave now? The sniffer made a fuss about Rand going over the wall first without knowing who was waiting outside, until Rand pointed out that he had the only weapon among them. Even then, Yurin did not seem to like letting Loyal lift Rand to catch the top of the wall and pull himself over. Rand landed on his feet with a thud, listening and peering into the night. For a moment, he thought he saw something move. He heard a boot scrape on the brick wall, but neither was repeated, and he dismissed it as nervousness. He thought that he had a right to be nervous. He turned to help Yurin down. Lord Rand, the sniffer said as soon as his feet were solidly on the ground. How are we going to follow them now? From what I've heard of those things, the whole lot of them could be halfway across the world by now, in any direction. Varen will know a way. Rand suddenly wanted to laugh. To find the horn and the dagger, if they could be found now, he had to go back to the Aes Sedai. They had let him loose, and now he had to go back. I won't let Mat die without trying. Loyal joined them, and they went back toward the manor, to be met at the small door by Mat, who opened it just as Rand reached for the handle. Varen says you're not to do anything. If Yurin's found where the horn is kept, then she says that's all we can do now. She says we'll leave as soon as you come back and make a plan. And I say, this is the last time I go running back and forth with messages. If you want to say something to somebody, you can talk to them yourself from now on. Mat peered past them into the darkness. Is the horn out there somewhere? In an outbuilding? Did you see the dagger? Rand turned him around and got him back inside. It isn't in an outbuilding, Mat. I hope Varen has a good idea of what to do now. I don't have any. Mat looked as if he wanted to ask questions, but he let himself be pushed along the dimly lit corridor. He even remembered to limp as they started upstairs. When Rand and the others re-entered the rooms filled with nobles, they received a number of looks. Rand wondered if they somehow knew something of what had happened outside, or if he should have sent Yurin and Mat to the front hall to wait. But then he realized the looks were no different from what they had been before, curious and calculating. wondering what the Lord and the Ogier had been up to. Servants were invisible to these people. No one tried to approach them, since they were together. It seemed there were protocols of conspiracy in the great game. Anyone might try to listen to a private conversation, but they would not intrude on it. Varen and Ingtar were standing together, and thus also alone. Ingtar looked a little dazed. Varen gave Rand and the other two a brief glance, rounded their expressions, and then resettled her shawl, and started for the entry hall. As they reached it, Barthanes appeared as if someone had told him they were leaving. "You go so soon. Varen Sedai cannot entreat you to stay longer." Varen shook her head. "We must go, Lord Barthanes. I have not been in Cairhien in some years. I was glad of your invitation to young Rand. It has been interesting." "Then Grace see you safely to your inn. The great tree, is it not? Perhaps you will favor me with your presence again. You would honor me, Varen Sedai, and you, Lord Rand, and you, Lord Ingtar, not to mention you, Loyal, son of Arid, son of Harmon." His bow was a little deeper for the Aes Sedai than for the others, but still no more than a slight inclination. Varen nodded in acknowledgement. "Perhaps the light illumine you, Lord Barthanes." She turned for the doors. As Rand moved to follow the others, Barthanes caught his sleeve with 2 fingers, holding him back. Matt looked as if he might
Be
stay
right back,
too.
everyone. I think my water might be
Holding
done
the
for my
joint down
tea.
the rest. "You wade even deeper in the game than I thought," Barthanes said softly. "When I heard your name, I could not believe it, yet you came, and you fit the description. And I was given a message for you. I think I will deliver it after all." Rand had felt a prickling along his backbone as Barthanes spoke, but at the last he stared. "A message? From whom? Lady Selene?" "A man. Not the sort for whom I would usually carry messages, but he has certain claims on me that I cannot ignore. He gave no name, but he was a Lugarder." "Ah, you know him?" "I know him." Vane left a message. Rand looked around the wide hall. Matt and Varen and the others were waiting by the doors. Liveried servants stood stiffly along the walls, ready to leap at a command, yet appearing neither to hear nor see. The sounds of the gathering floated from deeper in the manor. It did not look like a place where dark friends might attack. "He says he will wait for you on Tumen Hain. He has what you seek, and if you want it, you must follow. If you refuse to follow him, he says he will hound your blood and your people, and those you love, until you will face him." It sounds mad, of course, a man like that saying he will hound a lord. And yet there was something about him. I think he is mad. He even denied you are a lord, as any eye can plainly see. But there is still something. What is it he carries with him, with Trollocs to guard it? What is it you seek? Barthanes seemed shocked at the directness of his own questions. "The light illumine you, Lord Barthanes." Rand managed to bow, but his legs wobbled as he joined Varen and the others. "He wants me to follow. And he'll hurt Emond's Field? Damn if I don't." He had no doubt Fane could do it, would do it. At least Egwene is safe in the White Tower. He had sickening images of Trollocs descending in hordes on Emond's Field, of eyeless Fades stalking Egwene. But how can I follow him? How? Then he was out in the night, mounting Red. Varen and Ingtar and the others were all already on their horses, and the escort of Shinarans was closing round them. "What did you find?" Varen demanded. "Where does he keep it?" Euron cleared his throat loudly, and Loyal shifted in his high saddle. The Aes Sedai peered at them. "Vane has taken the haunted Tommen Head through a waygate," Rand said dully. "By this time, he's probably already waiting there for me." "We will speak of this later," Varen said, so firmly that no one spoke at all on the ride back to the city, to the great tree. Uno left them there after a quiet word from Ingtar, taking the soldiers back to their inn in the foregate. Buren took one look at Baron's set face by the light of the common room, muttered something about ale, and scurried to a table in a corner alone. The Aes Sedai brushed aside the innkeeper's solicitous hopes that she had enjoyed herself, and silently led Rand and the rest to the private dining room. Baron looked up from the travels of Jane Farstrider when they walked in, and frowned when he saw their faces. "It didn't go well, did it?" he asked, closing the leather-bound book. Lamps and beeswax candles around the room gave a good light. Mistress Teirdre charged heavily, but she did not stint. Varen carefully folded her shawl and laid it across the back of a chair. "Tell me again. The Dark Friends took the horn through a waygate at Barthanes' manor?"
The ground under the manor used to be an ogier grove, Loyal explained. When we built.
His voice trailed off, and his ears wilted under her look. Buren followed them right to it. Rand wearily threw himself into a chair. "I have to follow more than ever now. But how?" I opened it to show him he could still follow the trail wherever they went, and the Black Wind was there. It tried to reach us, but Loyal managed to close the gates before it could come all the way out. He colored a little at that, but Loyal had closed the gates, and for all he knew, Bachin Shin might have made it out without that. It was standing guard. "The Black Wind," Matt breathed, frozen halfway into a chair. They were staring at Rand, too. So were Varen and Ingtar. Matt dropped into the chair with a thump. "You must be mistaken," Varen said at last. "Bachin Shin could not be used as a guard. No one can constrain the Black Wind to do anything." "It's a creature of the Dark One," Matt said numbly. "They're Dark Friends. Maybe they knew how to ask it for help, or make it help." "No one knows exactly what Bachin Shin is," Varen said, "unless perhaps it is the essence of madness and cruelty. It cannot be reasoned with, Matt, or bargained with, or talked to. It cannot even be forced, not by any Aes Sedai living today, and perhaps not by any who ever lived. Do you really think
It's time for my tea now.
do what 10 Aes Sedai could not?" Matt shook his head. There was an air of despair in the room, of hope and purpose lost. The goal they had sought had vanished, and even Varen's face wore a floundering expression. "I'd never have thought Fane had the courage for the ways." Ingtar sounded almost mild, but suddenly he banged his fist against the wall. "I do not care how, or even if, Bachin Shin works on Fane's behalf. They have taken the Horn of Valir into the ways, Aes Sedai. By now, they could be in the Blight, or halfway to Tyr, or Tanjiko, or the other side of the Aiel Waste. The Horn is lost. I am lost." His hands dropped to his sides, and his shoulders slumped. "I am lost." "Fane is taking it to Toman Head," Rand said, and was immediately the object of all eyes again. Varen studied him narrowly. "You said that before. How do you know?" "He left a message with Barthanes," Rand said. "A trick," Ingtar sneered. "He'd not tell us where to follow." "I don't know what the rest of you are going to do," Rand said, "but I am going to Toman Head. I have to. I leave at first light."
But Rand,
Loyal said.
"It will take us months to reach Toman Head. What makes you think Fane will wait there for us?"
"He will wait. But how long before he decides I'm not coming? Why did he set that guard if he wants me to follow? Loyal, I mean to ride as hard as I can, and if I ride Red to death, I'll buy another horse or steal another, if I have to. Are you sure you want to come?"
"I've stayed with you this long, Rand. Why would I stop now?"
Loyal pulled out his pipe and pouch and began thumbing tobacco into the big bowl.
"You see, I like you. I would like you even if you weren't Taviran. Maybe I like you despite it. You do seem to get me neck deep in hot water. In any case, I am going with you."
He sucked on the pipe stem to test the draw, then took a splinter from the stone jar on the mantel and thrust it into a candle flame for a light.
"And I don't think you can really stop me."
"Well, I'm going," Matt said. "Fane still has that dagger, so I'm going. But all that servant business ended tonight." Varen sighed, an introspective look in his yellow eyes. I suppose I'll come along too. After a moment, he grinned. Somebody has to keep Matt out of trouble. Not even a clever trick, Tom muttered. Somehow, I'll get Barthanes alone, and I will learn the truth. I mean to have the Horn of Valir, not chase Jack-o'-the-Wisps. It may not be a trick, Varen said carefully, seeming to study the floor under her toes. There were certainly things left in the dungeons at Fal Dara. Writings that indicated a connection between what happened that night and... She gave Rand a quick glance under lowered brows. Toman Head. I still do not understand them completely, but I believe we must go to Toman Head, and I believe we will find the horn there. Even if they are going to Toman Head, Ingtar said, by the time we reach it, one of the other dark friends could have blown the horn 100 times. When the heroes return from the grave, will ride for the shadow. Bane could have blown the horn 100 times since leaving Fal Dara, Varen told him. And I think he would have, if he could open the chest. What we must worry about is that he might find someone who does know how to open it. We must follow him along the ways. Varen's head came up sharply, and Matt shifted in his chair. Loyal gave a low moan. Even if we could somehow sneak past Barthanes' guards, Rand said, I think we'll find Machin Shin still there. We cannot use the ways. How many of us could sneak onto Barthanes' grounds? Varen said dismissively. There are other way gates. Stedding Tsofu lies not far from the city, south and east. It is a young Stedding, redeveloped perhaps 600 years ago. The Ogier elders were still growing the ways then. Stedding Tsofu will have a way gate. It is there. Slightly louder sound than Rand was not the way gate or the Stedding. Ingtar still did not seem convinced that Varen was as smooth and as implacable as snow sliding down a mountainside. You will have your soldiers ready to ride, Ingtar. Send Huron to tell Uno before he goes to bed. I think we should all go to bed as soon as possible. These dark friends have gained at least a day on us already, and I mean to make up as much of it as I can tomorrow. So firm was the plump Aes Sedai's manner that she was already herding Ingtar to the door before she finished speaking. Rand followed the others out, but at the door he stopped beside the Aes Sedai and watched Matt heading down the candlelit hall. Why does he look like that? Yeah. I thought you healed him again. Enough to give him some peace anyway. She waited until Matt and the others had turned up the stairs before speaking. Apparently, it did not work so well as we believed. The sickness takes an interesting course in him. His strength remains. He will keep that to the end, I think. But his body wastes away. Another few weeks at most, I would say. You see, there is reason for haste. I do not think Aes Sedai, Rand said, making the title sound hard. Matt, the horn, Thane's threat. I Egwene. Burn me, I don't need another spur.
Excuse me.
And what of you, Randolph Thor? Do you feel well? Do you fight it still, or have you yet surrendered to the wheel? I ride with you to find the horn, he told her. Beyond that, there is nothing between me and any Aes Sedai. You understand me? Nothing. She did not speak, and he walked away from her. But when he turned to take the stairs, she was still watching him. Dark eyes sharp and considering. Chapter 34. The Wheel Weaves. The first light of morning already pearled the sky by the time Tom Merrilin found himself trudging back to the bunch of grapes. Even where the halls and taverns lay thickest, there was a brief time when the foregate lay quiet, gathering its breath. In his present mood, Tom would not have noticed if the empty street had been on fire.
Hey, Forster, how you
Some
doing,
of
bro?
Barthanes' guests had insisted on keeping him long
Just
after
chilling
he
and
was gone, long after
drinking a
Barthanes had taken himself to bed.
Nice little mug of
It had been his own fault
some
for
lemon
leaving
ginger
Brit up to
tea.
the horn, changing to the sort of tales he told and
See,
songs
that won't
he
help
sang
me
in
out
the
a little bit.
villages. Mara and the Three Foolish Kings, and Hasusa tamed Jay and Fartstrider, and stories of Anla, the Wise Counselor.
with some extra lemon
He
juice
admit
in
the
it.
choices to be a private comment on their stupidity.
How's your night going,
None of them might
Enforcer?
listen, much less be intrigued. Intrigued in a way. They had demanded more of the same, but they had laughed in the wrong places, at the wrong things. They had laughed at him too, apparently thinking he would not notice, or else that a full purse stuffed in his pocket would heal any wounds. He had almost thrown it away twice already. The heavy purse burning his pocket and pride was not the only reason for his mood, nor even the noble's contempt. They had asked questions about Rand, not even bothering to be subtle with a mere gleeman. Why was Rand in Carian? Why had an Andoran lord taken him, a gleeman, aside? Too many questions. He was not sure his answers had been clever enough. His reflexes for the great game were rusty. Before turning toward the bunch of grapes, he had gone to the great tree. It was not difficult to find where someone was staying in Carian if you pressed a palm or two with silver. He was still not sure what he had intended to say.
Oh shit,
Rand
hell
was
yeah.
gone with his friends in the Aes Sedai. It left a feeling of something not done.
Yeah, me and my brother's skill level ain't exactly at a
I'm out of it.
terminate level type.
He strode through the common room, empty as it seldom was, and took the steps two at a time. At least he tried to. His right leg did not bend well, and he nearly fell. Muttering to himself, he climbed
50
the rest
bucks?
of the way
Hell
at a
yeah,
slow pace
Enforcer,
and
that's
looked through
badass.
his room softly, so as not to wake Dina. Despite himself, he smiled when he saw her lying on the bed with
It's
her
always
face
good to
turned
win a little bit
the
of cash.
still in her dress. Fell asleep waiting for me, fool girl. He was not sure there was anything she would do that he would not forgive or excuse. Deciding on the spur of the moment that tonight was the night he'd let her perform for the first time, he lowered his harp case to the floor and put a hand on her shoulder to wake her and tell her. She rolled limply onto her back, staring up at him, glazed eyes open wide above the gash across her throat. The side of the bed that had been hidden by her body was dark and
Or
sullen.
party pack? Hell yeah.
Tom's stomach heaved. If his throat had not been so
Either
tight he
one
could
is
not
be
breathe,
pretty
he would have
good.
vomited or screamed or both. He had only the creaking of wardrobe doors for warning. He spun, knives coming out of his sleeves, leaving his hands in the same motion. The first blade took the throat of a fat, balding man with a dagger in his hand. The man stumbled back, blood bubbling around his clutching fingers as he tried to cry out. Spinning on his bad leg threw Tom's other blade off, though. The knife stuck in the right shoulder of a heavily muscled man with scars on his face, who was climbing out of the other wardrobe. The big man's knife dropped from a hand that suddenly would not do what he wanted, and he lumbered for the door. Before he could take a second step, Tom produced another knife and slashed him across the back of his leg. The big man yelled and stumbled, and Tom seized a handful of greasy hair and put his face against the wall beside the door. The man screamed again as the knife hilt sticking out of his shoulder hit the door. Tom thrust the blade in his hand to within an inch of the man's dark eye. The scars in the big man's face gave him a hard look. But he stared at the point without blinking and did not move a muscle. The fat man, lying half in the wardrobe, kicked a last kick and was still. Before I kill you, Tom said, tell me.
That definitely helps out on the throat, the
His
lemon
voice
ginger.
was quiet, numb. He felt numb inside. The great, the man said quickly. His accent was of the streets and his clothes as well. But they
See
were
if I
a
can
shade too
risk,
fine, too unworn. He had more coin to spend than any Forgator should.
Get a hit real
Nothing
quick.
against you personally, you see. It is just the game. The game. I'm not mixed up in Deus Timar. Who would want to kill me for the great game? The man hesitated. Tom moved his blade closer. If the fellow blinked, his eyelashes would brush the point. Who? Barthanes, came the hoarse answer. Who killed you?
Alright, this is
Barthanes wants information.
nice and
We just wanted to
warm.
find out what you know. There can be gold in it for you. A nice, fat, golden crown for what you know. Maybe two. Liar. I was in Barthanes' manor last night, as close to him as I am to you. If he wanted anything of me, I'd never have left alive. I tell you, we have been looking for you, or anyone who knows about this Andoran Lord for days. I never heard your name until last night downstairs. Lord Barthanes is generous. It could be 5 crowns. The man tried to pull his head away from the knife in Tom's hand, and Tom pushed him harder against the wall. Andrew and Lord. But he knew. Rand, of House Althor.
Hell yeah.
Tall, young.
What I like about the tea is they're
Or at least he wears the
at least the
sword.
ones I got, they're
I know he came to see you.
non-caffeine,
And you talked.
so there's
Tell me what you know.
I could drink them without
I
having
might
to
even throw in a crown or two myself.
worry about
Fool.
they keeping me up at night.
Dina died for this. All right, she's dead. He felt as if he wanted to cry. The boy's a shepherd. A shepherd in a fancy coat with Aes Sedai around him like bees around honey roses. Just a shepherd. He tightened his grip in the man's hair. Wait, wait! You can make more than any 5 crowns, or even 10.
Yeah.
100 more like.
If I had some honey, I'd put it in there, but
This Rand Althor. Approach me. Who wants to know it? A lady. I've seen her if we can find out who she is. Why, we could sell that too. There's one real mistake in it all, Tom said. Mistake? The man began to slide down toward his belt. Another dagger there. Tom ignored it. You should never touch the girl. The man's hand darted for his belt. Then he gave one convulsive start as Tom's knife went home. Tom let him fall over away from the door and stood a moment before bending tiredly to tug his blades free. The door backed open, and he whirled with a
definitely
snarl
helps
on his
after
face.
taking a hit.
Sarah jerked back, a hand to her throat, staring at him. That fool Ella just told me, she said unsteadily. The 2 of Barthanes' men were asking after you last night, and with what I've heard this morning, I thought you said you didn't play in the game. They found me, he said wearily. Her eyes dropped from his face and widened as they took in the bodies of the 2 men. Hastily, she stepped into the room, shutting the door behind her. This is bad, Tom. You'll have to leave Kyrian. Her gaze fell on the bed, and her breath caught. Oh, no.
Oh shit.
Oh, no.
They come out good ones on the
I'm
iPhone.
so sorry. Don't leave yet, Sarah. He hesitated, then tenderly drew a blanket over Dina, covering her face.
And that's
Another man to kill.
the only thing Apple I have is pretty much my tablet that I'm streaming on his iPad. I might have to check out some of the games on there.
If you mean Barthanes,
And my phone is Android.
everybody's talking about it already. He is dead. His servants found him this morning, torn to pieces in his bedchamber. The only way they knew it was him was his head stuck on a spike over the fireplace. She laid a hand on his arm. Tom, you can't hide that you were there last night. Not from anybody who wants to know. Add these 2 in, and there's nobody in Kyrian who won't believe you are involved. There was a slight questioning note in her voice, as if she too.
It doesn't matter, I suppose.
Oh
She
shit.
said dully.
Hell yeah.
He could not stop looking.
How's
down
the
at
camera on
shape
the, on the iPhone?
Perhaps I will go back to Andor.
Cause I know on the I got a
Shoulders.
Galaxy
You,
something.
she sighed.
I had to take my phone case
Always
off.
thinking with either your muscles or your hearts, and never your heads. Caemlyn is as bad as Kyrian for you. Either place you'll end up dead or in prison. Do you think she'd want that? If you want to honor her memory, stay alive.
So I got one of the newer Galaxies and it's in an altar box, but the camera on it's pretty good. I like it.
Folded her hands around it.
I was always wondering about
This should take care of.
if the new iPhone has a pretty decent camera on it.
I will see to everything, she said gently. You must go, Tom. Now. He nodded reluctantly and slowly began stuffing a few things in a set of
Warhammer, hell yeah. Camera's awesome, hell
Sarah
yeah.
got her first close look at the fat man sprawled partway in the
Might have to
wardrobe.
look at that
She gave a
after
loud gasp. He looked at her inquiringly.
this one's paid off
As he had known
because
her, she had
we're already
done
due
what
for
faint over
upgrade,
blood.
but once it's paid off,
These
I can
are
keep this
Barthanes'
phone
men, Tom.
and either still use it for a backup or sell it.
Toward the Batman. It's the worst kept secret in Kyrian that he works for House Rioton. For Galdrian. Goldrian, he said flatly. What has that bloody shepherd gotten me into? What have the Aes Sedai gotten us both into? But it was Goldrian's men murdered. There must have been something of his thoughts on his face. Zara said sharply, Dina wants you alive, you fool. You try to kill the king, and you'll be dead before you get within 100 spans of him, if you come that close. A roar came from within the city walls, as if half of Carrion were shouting. Frowning, Tom peered from his window. Beyond the top of the gray walls, above the rooftops of the foregate, a thick column of smoke was rising into the sky, far beyond the walls. Beside the first black pillar, a few gray tendrils quickly grew into another.
I think that's how this is
which
too.
disappeared further on. He estimated the distance and took a deep breath. Perhaps you had better think of leaving too. It looks as if someone is firing the granaries. I have lived through riots before. Go now, Tom. With a last look at Dina's shrouded form, he gathered his things, but as he started to leave, Zara spoke again. You have a dangerous look in your eyes, Tom Merriman. Imagine Dina sitting here, alive and hale. Think what she would say. Would she let you go off and get yourself killed to no purpose? I am only an old gleeman, he said from the door. And Randolph Thor is only a shepherd.
The zoom on it is actually pretty good.
Who could I possibly
It comes up on all
to?
nice, crisp, and clean.
As he pulled the door to, hiding Dina.
And for videos, it's not too bad either.
Came onto his face. His leg hurt, but he barely felt it as he turned purposely down the stairs.
Because you can zoom in on it with not really a lot of distortion in what you're trying to take a picture of or what you're trying to take a video of.
On the hills outside the town. The back horse bearing his precious burden bumped his leg.
I know one in the
ribs without looking. The animal snorted and
videos I posted up on my videos, it's I think it's titled my fishing buddy, but the little video of like the I guess ground squirrels or whatever they are is they're zoomed in pretty close and you can still see it pretty good.
The woman's companions had been shaken by the journey along the ways.
Almost.
Outside a long abandoned steading on top. Watching the Trollocs prepare their dinner had made the surviving Dark Friends extremely biddable.
I'm definitely happy with the way the camera works on that.
Trees, Fane studied the unwalled town and
I was always wondering how
one short merchant train was rumbling.
the iPhone's cameras were, because I've never really gotten an iPhone. It's always been Android.
Raising little dust from dirt packed by many years of such traffic. The men driving the wagons and the few riding beside them were all local men by their clothing. Yet the mounted men, at least, had swords on baldricks, and even a few spears and bows. The soldiers he saw, and there were few, did not seem to be watching the armed men they had supposedly conquered. Knowing something of these people, these Chon-Chan in his day and at night on Toman Head, at least as much as the defeated folk knew. It was never hard to find someone alone, and they always answered questions properly put. Men gathered more information on the invaders, as if they actually believed they would eventually do something with what they knew, but they sometimes tried to hold back. Women, by and large, seemed interested in going on with their lives, whoever their rulers were. Yet they noted details men did not, and they talked more quickly once they stopped screaming. Children talked the quickest of all, but they seldom said much that was worthwhile. He had discarded 3/4 of what he had heard as nonsense and rumors growing into fables, but he took some of those conclusions back now. Anyone at all could enter Falma, it appeared. With a start, he saw the truth of a little more nonsense as 20 soldiers rode out of town. He could not make out their mounts clearly, but they were certainly not horses. They ran with a fluid grace, and their dark skins seemed to have a glint in the morning sun, as of scales. He craned his neck to watch them disappear inland, then booted his horse through the town. The local folk among the stables and parked wagons and fenced horse lots gave him no more than a glance or two. He had no interest in them either. He rode on into the town, onto its cobblestone streets, sloping down to the harbor. He could see the harbor clearly, and the large
right back. I gotta throw this cup in the
anchored there.
kitchen real quick.
No one bothered him as he searched the streets that were neither crowded nor empty. There were more Shonchen soldiers here. The people hurried about their business with eyes down, bowing whenever soldiers passed, but the Shonchen paid them no mind. It all seemed peaceful on the surface, despite the armored Shonchen in the streets and the ships in the harbor. But Fane could sense the tension underneath. He always did well when men were tense and afraid. He came to a large house with more than a dozen soldiers standing guard before it. Fane stopped and dismounted. Except for one obvious officer, most wore armor of unrelieved black, and their helmets made him think of locusts' heads. Two leathery-skinned beasts with 3 eyes and horny beaks instead of mouths flanked the front door, squatting like crouching frogs. The soldier standing by each of the creatures had 3 eyes painted on the breast of his armor. Fane eyed the blue-bordered banner flapping above the roof, the spread-winged hawk catching lightning bolts, and chortled inside himself. Women went in and out of a house across the street, women linked by silver leashes.
Yeah, that's why I ended up getting
You know about Damani from the villagers.
for
It
mine
might be of some use later, but not now.
was the
soldiers were looking at him.
otter box, because without it, let's see.
Red and green. Forcing an ingratiating smile onto his face, Fane made himself bow deeply. My lords, I have something here that will interest your great lord. I assure you he will want to see it, and me, personally.
Yes.
He gestured to the square shape on his pack horse, still wrapped in the huge striped blanket in which his people had found it. The officer stared him up and down.
This is the galaxy. Let's see.
You sound a foreigner to this land. Have you taken the oaths? I obey, await, and will serve, Fane replied smoothly. Everyone he had questioned spoke of the oaths, though none had understood what they meant. If these people wanted oaths, he was prepared to swear to anything.
Because I have
He had long since
a
questioned
tendency
the
to
oaths he
be.
had taken. The officer motioned 2 of his men to see what was under
I
the
just don't
blanket.
want to. As much as they cost in the end.
As they lifted it down from the pack saddle, turned to gasps while he away. The officer stared with no expression on his face.
I just don't want to break it because I have pretty bad luck as far as holding stuff on.
A gift fit for the
It's a little thin, yeah.
You will come with me.
I'm not sure how much thinner it is compared to
noting that the officer and the 2
the
soldiers
iPhone.
who took up the chest surrendered their swords and daggers before going inside.
But
Anything he could learn
we got both me and my brother both got an otter box
confident of his plan already.
for it whenever we
But
got
no
it,
more than where lords feared an assassin's knife from
which
their
has
own
come in
property.
handy because I have.
As they went through the door, the officer
Dropped
grabbed
it.
him, and for a moment Fane wondered why.
I think like the same day or the next day after that we got them.
Whatever they
And
were,
when it landed
Trollocs
like
and
edge
Trollocs,
first
nothing at all beside a Murkrow.
and then fell
But
forward
he had not given them a second look.
or forward. Yeah,
It was too late to pretend to be afraid of them now.
they didn't fall back.
Said nothing.
It still cracked the back, just like how the iPhones are.
And so Fane found himself on his face. in a
But
room
I
bare of
definitely
furniture,
get the case
except
now
for
just
folding
'cause.
screens that hid its walls.
Yeah, I don't want it to
While the
break.
officer told the High Lord Turok of him and his offering. Servants brought a table on which
Even
the
though-
chests
even though they're,
would have no need to stoop.
Whatchamacallit,
All Fane saw of them were scurrying slippers.
they got full coverage on it as far as insurance, but
Eventually there would come a time when he was not the one to bow. Then the soldiers were dismissed
I
and
don't
Fane
wanna-
told to rise.
you still got to pay that
He
little
did
bit of
so
fee
slowly, studying
for
both
your
the High
insurance,
Lord's
so.
shaven head and his long fingernails and his blue silk robe, brocaded with blossoms, and the man who stood beside him with the unshaven half of his pale hair in a long braid.
Because I remember the
Fane was sure the fellow in gray
Actually, it
only
was,
a servant, however brave. But servants
this
were
one.
useful, especially
there was
if
another
they
Galaxy
survived
one
the
that broke,
master's
and well, you can see it's taped
son.
and it cracked all gnarly.
Turok's eyes lifted
It wasn't
to
fully
check.
paid off,
A scent
and
of
what
roses
sucked about-
wafted from the High Lord.
and it still works. 'Cause I can
As the
still
question asks itself,
do shit with it.
how did one
It's
like
mainly
you
what I keep my audio
by
books on.
contrast many lesser lords could not afford?
But when it broke,
Are you a
the
thief?
insurance, like I said, we have full
Fane tugged
coverage.
at his worn,
The
none
insurance
too
would have
clean
covered. They covered it, but
It is
they didn't
sometimes
have no more
necessary for a man
phones to
appear less
replace
than he is,
this
my
phone.
lord. My present
So what they
shepherds
did was
allowed me to bring this to you unmolested.
they gave me the money that I
This
already
chest
paid
is
towards
old,
it
my lord,
to get a
as
new
old as
phone.
the age of legends. And within it lies a treasure such as few eyes have ever seen. Soon, Very soon,
I can't remember if
I
it's
will be able to open it.
if I gotta
And
pay
give
for it
you
or
that
not as far as the
whatever you
replacement.
wish.
I'm
This
not
land
sure if
as
we
far
do or
as you
not.
wish. To the spine
Because
of
we
the
got
world,
ours
the
through
Yayu waste, the land
AT&T and
beyond.
both our phones
Nothing will
are
stand against you, High Lord.
covered
Once
under a full
he cut
full
off as
coverage.
Turok began running his long-nailed fingers over the chest. I have seen chests such as this. Chests from the Age of Legends. Though none so fine. They are meant to be opened only by those who know the pattern. But
I think on the insurance, I think it's actually free. I
pressed
think
him on
when
the
we
order of whorls and
like
bosses.
say upgrade
There
and
was
pick
a
our new
sharp
phone,
click, and he lifted back the lid.
because we get our
A flicker
we do
of
our
what might
phones
have
and
been
payments
disappointment
each
passed
month
across his face.
on the bill. It's
Fane
added.
bit the inside of his lip till blood came to keep
But I
from
think all we
spouting.
had to do when we got our new phone
It
was
lessened
pay
his bargaining position
the
that he
sales
was not the
tax.
one who had opened the chest. Still, all the rest could go as he had planned. He made himself be patient. But he had been patient so long. These are treasures from the Age of Legends, Turok said, lifting out the curled horn in one hand and the curved dagger with the ruby in its golden hilt in the other. Fane clutched his hands in fists at his sides so he would not grab the dagger. Turok repeated softly, tracing the silver script inlaid around the golden bell of the horn with the tip of the dagger's blade. His brows rose in startlement, the first open expression Fane had seen from him.
I can remember which one we actually had to pay
Turok's
for. I
face
think it's
was
just
as smooth as ever.
upgrade when we get the new phone. We
Do you
gotta
have
pay a
any
little bit
idea
for the
what this
insurance
is?
now.
The Horn of Valir, High Lord, Fane said smoothly, pleased to see the mouth of the man with the braid drop open. Turok only nodded as if to himself. The High Lord turned away. Fane blinked and opened his mouth, then, at a sharp gesture from the yellow-haired man, followed without speaking. Another room with all the original furnishings gone, replaced by folding screens and a single chair facing a tall, round cabinet. Still holding the horn and the dagger, Turok looked at the cabinet, then away. He said nothing. But the other Shan-Chan snapped quick orders, and in moments, men in plain woolen robes appeared through a door behind the screens, bearing another table. A young
Some more
woman
hot
with hair
chocolate,
so pale
nice.
it was almost
I would
white
make
came
some more
behind him,
tea, but
her arms full of
that one
small
takes so
stands of
long. They gotta
polished
heat the
wood in
water
various
up
sizes and shapes.
and still let the
Her
tea sit
garment
for a
was
little
white
bit.
silk and so thin that Fane could see her body clearly through it. But he had eyes only for the dagger. The horn was a means to an end, but the dagger was a part of him. Turok briefly touched one of the wooden stands the girl held, and she placed it on the center of the table.
Oh,
The
yeah.
men turned the chair to face
I know the
it under
tea's
direction of
relaxing.
the man with the
Definitely
braid.
helps me with
The low
my
servants' hair hung to their shoulders.
with my
They
cough,
scurried out with
which
bows
I
that
really like.
almost put their heads on their knees. Placing the horn on the stand so that it stood upright, Turok laid the dagger on the table in front of it and went to sit in a chair. Fane could no longer stand it. He reached for the dagger. The yellow-haired man caught his wrist in a crushing grip. Unshaven dog, know that the hand that touches the property of the High Lord unbidden is cut off. It is mine, Fane growled. Patience. So long. Turok, lounging back in the chair, lifted one blue lacquered fingernail, and Fane was pulled out of the way so the High Lord could view the horn unobstructed. Yours, Turok said. Inside a chest you could not open. If you interest me sufficiently, I may give you the dagger. Even if it is from the Age of Legends, I have no interest in such as that. Before all else, you will answer me a question. Why have you brought the Horn of Valir to me? Fane eyed the dagger longingly a moment more, then jerked his wrist free and rubbed it as he bowed. That you may sound it, High Lord. Then you may take all of this land if you wish, all of the world. You may break the White Tower and grind the Aes Sedai to dust, or even their powers cannot stop heroes come back from the dead. I am to sound it. Turok's tone was flat. And break the White Tower. Again, why? You claim to obey, but this is a land of oath-breakers. Why do you give your land to me? Do you have some private quarrel with these women? Fane tried to make his voice convincing. Patient, like a worm. My lord, my family has passed down a tradition, generation upon generation. We serve the High King, Arthur Paendrag Tanrial, and when he was murdered by the witches of Tarvaland, we did not abandon our oaths. When others warred and tore apart what Arthur Hawkwing had made, we held to our swearing and suffered for it, but held to it still. This is our tradition, High Lord. Handed father to son and mother to daughter, down all the years since the High King was murdered. That we await the return of the armies Arthur Hawkwing sent across the Arth Ocean. That we await the return of Arthur Hawkwing's blood to destroy the White Tower and take back what was the High King's. And when the Hawkwing's blood returns, we will serve and advise as we did for the High King. My lord, except for its border, the banner that flies over this roof is the banner of Luther. The son, Arthur Paendrag Tanrial, sent with his armies across the ocean. Thane dropped to his knees, giving a good imitation of being overwhelmed. My lord, I wish only to serve and advise the blood of the High King. Turok was silent so long that Thane began to wonder if he needed further convincing. He was ready with more, as much as was required. Finally, though, the High Lord spoke. You seem to know what none, neither the High nor Low, has spoken since sighting this land. The people here speak it as one rumor among 10, but you know. I can see it in your eyes, hear it in your voice. I can almost think you were sent to entangle me in a trap. But who, possessing the Horn of Alir, would use it so? None of those of the blood who came with the Hylian.
Hey, Grandpa, how you doing?
The legend says
Hope you're doing well, brother.
And surely any lord of this land would use it against me rather than put it in my hands. How did you come to possess the Horn of Alir? Do you claim to be a hero, as in the legend? Have you done valorous deeds?
Nice, Enforcer. It's always good when it's nice and warm.
Thane ventured a self-deprecating smile, but Turok's face did not alter. He let it go. The horn was found.
I hope you're doing well, Grandpa.
During the turmoil.
Hope everyone's doing well.
He knew how to open the chest, but that secret died with him in the War of the 100 Years that rent Arthur Hawkwing's empire. So that all we who followed him knew was that the horn lay within, and we must keep it safe until the High King's blood returned.
I'm not too bad tonight, Grandpa.
Almost.
Just chilling, doing a little nighttime stream.
Sound the horn, do not ruin what convincing you have managed to do.
Just not so much smoking right now.
When I return
At least until
I shall present it to the Empress as the chief.
I get this bronchitis taken care of.
Perhaps the interest will sound.
Seems to.
You must.
Excuse me.
He found himself lying on his side, his head ringing.
Seems to
only when his eyes cleared
act up more at nighttime around this time whenever I try to smoke. I'm not sure why, but
some words the fellow said softly.
More like this time at night than versus like say during the day.
Decided how the man was going to die. Turok looked from Thane to the horn as placidly as if he had seen nothing. Perhaps I will give you to the Empress along with the Horn of Alir. She might find you amusing. A man who claims his family held true where all others broke their oaths or forgot them. Thane hid his sudden elation in the act of climbing back to his feet. He had not even known of the existence of an Empress until Turok mentioned her. But access to a ruler again, that opened new paths, new plans. Access to a ruler with the might of the Shanchan beneath her and the Horn of Alir.
Yeah, Grandpa.
Much better than making this Turok a great king. He could wait for some parts of his plan. Softly. Mustn't let him know how much you want it. After so long, a little more patience will not hurt. As the High Lord wishes, he said, trying to sound like a man who only wanted to serve.
No shit.
You seem almost eager, Turok said, and Thane barely suppressed a wince. I will tell you why I will not sound the horn.
I'm not sure why bronchitis does that, but
cure your eagerness.
It kind of sucks.
I do not wish a gift of mine.
I like smoking before I go to bed, but I did that yesterday a little bit, and I got to sleep eventually. It was a rough one. She gets congested now, and that sucks, Grandpa.
That so long as he or she lives,
And then when I get real bad coughing fits, I just start pouring sweat. And yeah, this makes it very uncomfortable for me to try to sleep at night when I get like that.
I kept the Hornavalier all between myself and the throne with.
But I think like that, it's got like I got done finished, nice little hot tea, like a lemon type tea. It helps. And then I have this right now too. That helps a little bit. Because when they gave me my script, they gave me 2 of these.
The Empress, may she live forever, would surely believe I meant to be more than.
I hope not. That would suck.
Bain stopped himself short of suggesting how possible that would be with the aid of the horn.
Be right back, everyone.
Something in the High Lord's voice suggested, as hard as Bain found it to believe, that he actually meant his wish for her to live forever. I must be patient. A worm in the root. The Empress's listeners may be anywhere, Turok continued. They may be anyone. Juan was born and raised in the house of Aladan, and his family for 11 generations before him, yet even he could be a listener. The man with the braid half made a protesting gesture before jerking himself back to stillness. Even a High Lord or a High Lady can find their deepest secrets known to listeners, and wait to find themselves already handed over to the seekers for truth. Truth is always difficult to find, but the seekers spare no pain in their search, and they will search as long as they think there is need. They make great efforts not to allow a High Lord or High Lady to die in their care, of course. For no man's hand may slay one in whose veins flows the blood of Otter Hawkwing. If the Empress must order such a death, the unfortunate one is placed alive in a silken bag, and that bag hung over the side of the Tower of the Ravens, and left there until it rots away. No such care would be taken for one such as you. At the court of the Nine Moons in Shandar, one such as you could be given to the Seekers for a for a misspoken word.
Oh yeah, enforcer. That, and I guess sometimes, at least I've never noticed it, but when I was in my hospital stays, when I had my mom and aunt in the room with me, I guess sometimes when I fall asleep, I kind of stop breathing sometimes in my sleep.
You will amuse me with your tale.
I guess sometimes I'll stop breathing, and when I start breathing again, it comes in big gasps.
Who can amuse me, even if you both tell lies, as I suspect. You may leave me.
But from what I hear, I guess that's probably not good either.
The girl with the nearly white hair and the almost transparent robe appeared on quick feet to kneel with downcast head beside the High Lord, offering a single steaming cup on a lacquered tray. High Lord, Bain said.
Yeah, that's what I heard it's called, but I haven't actually been diagnosed by a doctor from it yet.
Kill him slowly, yes. My lord, there are those who follow me. They mean to take the Hornavalier. Dark friends and worse, High Lord. And they cannot be more than a day or two behind me.
Need to be checked out.
Turok took a sip of black liquid from the thin cup balanced on his fingertips. Few dark friends remain.
Probably, yeah.
Those who survive the Seekers for Truth meet the axe of a headsman. It might be amusing to meet a dark friend. My lord, they are dangerous. They have Trollocs with them. They are led by one who calls himself Randall Thor. A young man, but vile in the shadow beyond belief, with a lying, devious tongue. In many places he has claimed to be many things, but always the Trollocs come when he is there, High Lord. Always the Trollocs come and kill. Trollocs, Turok mused. There were no Trollocs in Shan-Chan, but the armies of the night had other allies, other things. I have often wondered if a Grom could kill a Trolloc. I will have watch kept for your Trollocs and your dark friends, if they are not another lie.
I was always get,
This land
I guess, say a little paranoid trying to go get checked out for certain things because I know how my luck is. I don't want to be that or something else or that on top of other stuff.
Lecture on what would happen if he ever again failed to leave Lord Turok's presence when given permission to do so. He barely noticed when he was pushed into the street with a coin and instructions to return on the morrow. Rand al'Thor was his now. I will see him dead at last. And then the world.
Yeah, that was probably explained. I don't think I really get deep sleep that much either.
He led his horses down into the town.
You see, don't seem like it.
Chapter 35. Steading Sofu. The river hills on which the city
I constantly move around all the time.
Forests when Rand and the others had ridden half a day. The Shienarans still with their armor on the pack horses. There were no roads where they went, only a scattering of cart tracks and few farms or villages. Beren pressed for speed, and Ingtar, grumbling constantly that they were letting themselves be tricked, that Fane would never have told them where he was really going, yet grumbling at the same time about riding in the opposite direction from Tumlin Head, as if part of him believed that Tumlin Head were not months away except by the way they took. Ingtar obliged her. The gray owl banner flew on the wind of their path.
That's crazy, Grandpa. I mean, Enforcer.
Rand rode with grim determination.
That's still crazy too, Grandpa.
With Beren.
About to not be able to get deep sleep.
This duty, Ingtar would have called it. And then he could be free of Aes Sedai once and for all. Beren seemed to share something of his mood, staring straight ahead at nothing as they rode. When they finally stopped for the night at the edge of the forest,
that probably explained a lot.
Beren asked loyal questions. Trollocs would never enter a steading. Wood wolves.
That and
Loyal replied shortly that it was
I really can't sleep and it's real warm in my room. Because let's see, right behind me, like let's see, right here is where the heater is. My room is kind of small, so when the heater's on, it actually makes my room like a hot box. So I actually have the vent for the heater plugged up because I can't sleep like that. And let's see if you can see it. I actually have, there we go, my window unit on. So I have my AC on.
Even Huron frowned when he looked at Matt. The sun stood high on the second day when Beren suddenly sat up straight in his saddle and looked around.
It's got to be nice and chilly for me to be able to fall asleep.
I did not see anything different about the forest now surrounding them. The undergrowth. They had found an easy way under the canopy of oak and hickory. Black gum.
Let's see if I can get a good one of my my dog, because he's in my spot right now, but
as he followed them, he suddenly felt a chill pass through him, as though he had leaped into a waterwood pond in winter. It flashed through him and was gone, leaving behind a feeling of refreshment. And there was a dull and distant sense of loss, too, though he could not imagine of what. Every rider, as he reached that point, gave a jerk or made some exclamation. Huron's mouth dropped open, and Una whispered, "Bloody flaming." Then he shook his head as if he could not think of anything else to say. There was a look of recognition in Beren's yellow eyes. Loyal took a deep, slow breath and let it out. It feels good to be back in a steady. Frowning, Rand looked around. He had expected a steading to be somehow different, but except for that one chill, the forest was the same as what they had been riding through all day. There was the sudden sense of being rested, of course.
Oh shit, that's crazy, Enforcer. Oh, I constantly, it even has a little light on it to let me know when to check my filter, but I do that anyways, like every 2 or 3 days. I'll open it up, take the filter out, give that a good brushing, and actually go through on the back part of it and hit it with the toothbrush and clean all that grading real good too.
She looked at them calmly, waiting.
See, that's the only thing I won't be able to do is force her to sleep with the actual mask on my face. It's because that'd be uncomfortable and I move around way too much for something like that. Cause I start on my back, be on my side, be on my other side.
studied them,
Yeah,
then
I move
smiled.
around way too much at night for something like that.
Her voice was a lighter version of Loyal's too, the softer rumble of a smaller bumblebee.
I am Aerith, daughter of Iva, daughter of Alar. Be welcome. We have had so few human visitors since the stonemasons left Kyrian, and now so many at once. Why, we even had some of the traveling people, though of course they left when the... Oh, I talk too much. I will take you to the elders, only...
She searched among them for the one in charge and settled finally on Baron.
Aes Sedai, you have so many men with you and armed. Could you please leave some of them outside? Forgive me, but it is always unsettling to have very many armed humans in the steading at once.
Of course, Aerith, Baron said.
Hell yeah, Grandpa, you have a good night. Definitely appreciate you stopping by, brother.
So it was that he and Huron were the only Shinarans to
See
follow.
if I can't catch you on your stream tomorrow.
Leading his horse like the others, Rand looked up as Loyal came closer.
You stay safe too.
At Aerith up ahead with Baron and Ingtar. Huron walked midway between, staring around in amazement, though Rand was not sure at what exactly. Loyal bent to speak quietly.
Is she not beautiful, Rand? And her voice sings.
Matt snickered, but when Loyal looked at him questioningly, he said, "Very pretty, Loyal. A little tall for my taste, you understand, but very pretty, I'm sure." Loyal frowned uncertainly, but nodded.
Yes, she is.
His expression lightened.
It does feel good to be back in a state.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate it,
Not
Grandpa.
that the longing was
Definitely appreciate you stopping in too. I know it's kind of late for everyone,
I do not
but
understand,
definitely appreciate
Loyal.
everyone who stops in and chills with
We
me for
owe you our
whatever
vow
little bit
to
they
the
do.
steading, Baron. It is said that before the breaking of the world, we could go where we wished for as long as we wished, like you humans. But that changed with the breaking. Ogier were scattered like every other people, and they could not find any of the steading again. Everything was moved. Everything changed. Mountains, rivers, even the seas.
Everybody knows
All
how
right,
to
you have a
break,
good night
Matt said
too.
impatiently. What does it have to do with this longing?
It was during the exile, while we wandered lost, that the longing first came on us.
I'll be probably here
Desire to know
soon. I'll
the steading
probably be
once
calling into this one
to
too,
know
just so
our
I can
homes
try to
again.
get some sleep and at least try to get up a little
Well, shook his
earlier
head
than usual
sadly.
tomorrow.
More died than lived. When we
I
finally
usually
got
don't wake
to find
up
the steading
and-
again,
Or at
one
least
a time, in the years
wake
we
up and
covered
get out of bed
the
till about
nations,
between like
it seemed
11
we
or
had
noon.
defeated the longing at last. But it had changed us.
But I try to get up a little earlier tomorrow, and
Now, if an Ogier
I
is
gotta start
outside
working
too
on
long, the longing comes again.
a vest
He begins to
that
weaken,
Smoked Out's buying
and
from
he
me.
dies if he does not return.
Do you need to stay here
Finally
a while?
starting that
Baron
since I was
asked
feeling
anxiously.
a
There's no
little
need to
bit
kill
better than
yourself
I've
to go
been.
with us.
I will know it when it comes.
Loyal laughed.
It will be long before it is strong enough to cause harm to me. Why, Dala spent 10 years among the sea folk without ever seeing a steading, and she came safely home.
An Ogier woman appeared out of the trees, pausing a moment to speak with Aerith and Baron. She looked Ingtar up and down and seemed to dismiss him, which made him blink. Her eyes swept across Loyal, flicked over Huron and the Emmonsfielders before she went off into the forest again. Loyal seemed to be trying to hide behind his horse.
Besides,
He said, peering cautiously across his saddle after her.
it is a dull life in the steading compared to traveling with 3 Taviran.
If you're going to start that again, Matt muttered, and Loyal spoke up quickly.
3 friends, then. You are my friends, I hope.
I am, Rand said simply, and Baron nodded. Matt laughed. How could I not be friends with somebody who dices so badly? He threw up his hands when Rand and Baron looked at him. Oh, all right, I like you, Loyal. You're my friend. Just don't go on about... Sometimes you're as bad to be around as Rand. His voice sank to a mutter. At least we're safe here in a steading. Rand grimaced. He knew what Matt meant. Here in a steading, or I can't channel. Baron punched Matt's shoulder, but looked sorry that he had when Matt grimaced at him with that gaunt face. It was the music Rand became aware of first, unseen flutes and fiddles in a jolly tune that floated through the trees, and deep voices singing and laughing. Clear the field, smooth it low, let no weed or stubble stand. Here we labor, here we toil, here the towering trees will grow. Almost at the same moment, he realized that the huge shape he was seeing through the trees was a tree itself, with a rigid, buttressed trunk that must have been 20 paces thick. Gaping, he followed it up with his eyes, up through the forest canopy to branches spreading like the top of a gigantic mushroom, a good 100 paces above the ground. And beyond it were taller still. Burn me, Matt breathed. You could build 10 houses from just one of those. 50 houses.
Cut down a great tree?
Loyal sounded scandalized, and more than a little angry. His ears were stiff and still, his long eyebrows down on his cheeks.
We never cut down one of the great trees, not unless it dies, and they almost never do. Few survived the breaking, but some of the largest were seedlings during the Age of Legends.
I'm sorry, Matt said. I was just saying how big they are. I won't hurt you, trees. Loyal nodded, seeming mollified. More Ogier appeared now, walking among the trees. Most seemed intent on whatever they were about. Though all looked at the newcomers and even gave a friendly nod or a small bow, none stopped or spoke. They had a curious way of moving, in some manner blending a careful deliberateness with an almost childlike carefree joyfulness. They knew and liked who and what they were, and where they were. They seemed at peace with themselves and everything around them. Bran found himself envying them. Few of the Ogier men were any taller than Loyal, but it was easy to pick out the older men. One and all, they wore mustaches as long as their dangling eyebrows, and narrow beards under their chins. All of the younger were smooth-shaven, like Loyal. Many of the men were in their shirt sleeves and carried shovels and mattocks, or saws and buckets of pitch. The others wore plain coats that buttoned to the neck and flared about their knees like kilts. The women seemed to favor embroidered flowers, and many wore flowers in their hair, too. The embroidery was limited to the cloaks of the younger women. The older women's dresses were embroidered as well, and some women with gray hair had flowers and vines from neck to hem. A handful of the Ogier, women and girls for the most part, did seem to take special notice of Loyal. He walked staring straight ahead, ears twitching more wildly the further they went. Rand was startled to see an Ogier apparently walking up out of the ground, out of one of the grassy, wildflower-covered mounds that lay scattered all among the trees here. Then he saw windows in the mounds, and an Ogier woman standing at one apparently rolling a pie crust. Realized he was looking at Ogier homes. The window frames were stone, but they not only seemed natural formations, they appeared to have been sculpted by wind and water over generations. The great trees, with their massive trunks and spreading roots as thick as horses, needed a great deal of room between them, but several grew right in the town. Dirt ramps took the paths over the roots. In fact, aside from the pathways, the only way to tell town from forest at a glance was a large open space in the center of the town, around what could only be the stump of one of the great trees. Nearly 100 paces across, its surface was polished as smooth as any floor, and there were steps built up to it at several places. Brand was imagining how tall that tree had been when Aerith spoke loudly enough for them all to hear.
Here come our guests.
3 human women came walking around the side of the huge stump. The youngest were carrying a wooden bowl. I yield, Ingtar said. Maidens of the Spear. As well I did leave Masema with the others. Yet he stepped away from Varen and Aerith and reached over his shoulder to loosen his sword in its scabbard. Bran studied the Aiel with an uneasy curiosity. They were what too many people had tried to tell him he was. 2 of the women were mature, the other little more than a girl, but all 3 were tall for women. Their short-cut hair ranged from a reddish-brown to almost golden, with a narrow shoulder-length tail left long at the back. They wore loose breeches tucked into soft boots, and all their clothes were some shade of brown or gray or green. He thought the garments would fade into rock
That's
or
getting a little
woods
tired.
almost as
I
well
might
as a
have to
warrior's
call
bow.
into this one.
Short bows poked over their shoulders, quivers and long knives hung at their belts, and each carried a small round shield of hide and a cluster of spears with short shafts and long points. Even the elders moved
I'm
with
probably
a
gonna
grace
call
that
into
suggested
this
she
life
never
for right
used the
now.
weapon she carried.
Actually, a little tired.
Luckily, the women became aware of the other
I want
humans.
to thank everyone who
They
stopped
seemed
by, and
startled at being startled
everyone who
as they
keeps
did
stopping
beside
by
Brand and the
and
others.
chilling with me for
They moved like lightning.
doing my
The elders were
little
shouting,
live as late as I
"Shine
do.
arms," and
But
turned to set
definitely
the bow
appreciate everyone
carefully
stopping
behind them.
by, and
The other two quickly lifted brown cloths from around their
probably be
shoulders,
on again tomorrow around the
wrapping
same
them around
time.
their heads instead.
Continue the book.
The older women were
But yeah, I
raising
think
black
want to
veils
thank everyone
across their
stopping by
faces,
and keeps
hiding
coming
everything
back
but
and
their eyes.
showing me
The youngest
love and
straight women
support.
take them.
Till next time,
Crouching low,
everyone.
they
Stay
advanced at a
safe.
deliberate pace, shields held forward with their clusters